This thing in Memphis, I mean, it's weirder than the Paul Pelosi case and a lot more serious, obviously. This poor guy is moments away from getting beaten to death. He is swarmed by like 5 cops at this moment, and these cops, in addition to being brutal thugs, it looks like, are incompetent, totally incompetent. I mean, he got away. He actually gets away. After the initial pullover, he somehow gets away. It's kind of wild, isn't it? I mean, cops misbehaving this grossly, this criminally. I mean, after all of those protests, right, for racial and social justice, this somehow did not bring about the positive change people were looking for? Mouthing off in a cop's face did not do the trick. Wow, Black Lives Matter, summer 2020. I thought everything was going to be different. This made things worse for all of us. And how did they become cops? We're finding out, and it looks like it is a result of the insanity from the left, especially Black Lives Matter and everybody complicit with them, from the NFL to you name it, Disney, all the people who threw their logo right next to Black Lives Matter. I think they bear some responsibility. Now, becoming a cop, traditionally, we know how to do it, right? We know how to screen people. You give them a test. You give them a very serious, competitive civil service exam. And then there's a background check, criminal background check, and everything else. You want to talk to the guy's employers. You want to talk to neighbors. You want to talk to spouses and ex-spouses. That's all that goes into it. Oh, and you have to take a mental health check. Yes, the police psychological exam. It's serious. They can tell if you're lying, apparently. It's a true-false test, 700 questions, and they're very random, and you can't beat the test. It's going to find out whether or not you are able or not. So these 5 guys, they became cops. I'll tell you, this is a department in total and complete decline. We don't have the entire records of these individuals, but the place where they worked, tolerating criminals among the men and women in blue. This report is from 1 year ago this month.
A lot of people look at the risk associated with the job and don't want to take that risk.
And the pay doesn't help. Lieutenant Cage says Memphis police salaries don't match up to the higher paying suburban jobs. To fight that, Memphis is offering a $15,000 sign-on bonus and changing minimum requirements for new recruits. Hurdles that have kept many people from making the force in the past, like the physical fitness requirement.
The physical ability test, instead of it being a timed test, it will not be timed. It's not going to be pass or fail. It's just going to be an assessment.
MPD is also cutting the minimum number of college credit hours to 24, down from 54.
I don't think it's lowering any standards. It's just making adjustments to accommodate this current generation.
Accommodate the current generation? There are colleges all over the place. It's so easy to enroll in college. The job is getting more and more complex, that of a police officer, yet they are lowering the education requirements. They had to. They thought they had to because nobody wants to be a cop these days. But it gets worse.
The most controversial change may be in the way MPD is looking at candidates' police record. Yes, a criminal record.
We are taking a really close look at candidates that have small infractions on their, whether it's a criminal record or whether it's records regarding employment stability or driving history. We're looking at those, and we're looking at them on a case-by-case basis.
I took it a step further and checked with the Post Commission. That's the Tennessee Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. Any law enforcement agency can ask for a waiver. The rule reads in part, the commission may waive requirements for a person who has been convicted of or pleaded guilty to any felony charge relating to force, violence, excluding domestic violence, theft, dishonesty, gambling, or liquor charges.
Felony assault? Grand larceny? What? These things are no-brainers. You can't be a cop with this stuff on your record. But after Black Lives Matter summer, they had to reevaluate, didn't they? In a big way. This is so radically different from America, from what we know. America knows how to run a police department. Up until the country lost its mind, it really happened in the overreaction to George Floyd. Nobody wants to be a cop these days. Who remembers Dragnet? Dragnet, I remember the reruns, and these guys spell out what it takes to be a cop. And this applied up until very, very recently.
Maybe you've forgotten what you went through to join. The physical endurance tests, the psychological evaluations. Are you suited to be a police officer? Can you be objective? Will your emotions affect your job? Can you take orders? Can you give them? Does carrying a gun and a badge give you a feeling of power? Now, if you don't measure up properly to all those qualifications, you don't get into this minority, Carl. Only the best men do. The cream.
Right. You can't uphold those standards today. No. With how we have treated the police as a country, the media, academia, you name it. Jack Webb, by the way, is as Joe Friday. Now, they had that specialized unit in Memphis, the Scorpion Unit. Pretty intense name, right? Something about these guys, actually, I noticed, and I talked to some law enforcement professionals, and something's going on here, a complete lack of uniformity, which often suggests a lack of discipline. Drop the banner for a moment. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing when it comes to the uniform. That's an indicator that things might not be very well run. It's not exactly a tight ship. But according to Memphis media, they were getting the job done, at least initially.
It's been 3 weeks since Memphis police launched the new Scorpion Unit. The unit was created to address violent crimes throughout the city. Since its start just 3 weeks ago, the Scorpion Unit has made 338 arrests, including 125 felony arrests, and they've recovered 95 weapons.
Wow. Scorpion Unit. It's been disbanded, Scorpion. That's a pretty intense name. Here's what it actually stands for. Let's go through this. Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Scorpion, though. Scorpion, okay. Pretty intense name. The crimes, and they were crimes, it looks like to me, of this unit has ruined it for many, many other cities because we're seeing, again, an overreaction. This is Ben Crump, who is a race hustler and manages to make a lot of money out of other people's tragedies. Take a look.
These organized crime units, often known as the jump out boys in many communities of color. Now, they don't do this in white communities, but they do it in communities of color where they are very aggressive. They trample on the constitutional rights of the citizens. They engage in excessive force, almost with impunity.
Painting with a pretty broad brush there, aren't you, Ben Crump? Wow. They have these units where the black people are, not where the white people are. You want to leave it at that? You don't want to talk about crime patterns and perhaps these specialized units are deployed to areas where there's higher crime? You just want to say it's a white-black thing. Okay. And speaking of white-black things, you know, so much in America is about optics these days. And I'm wondering about the qualifications of the Memphis police chief. I would bet money that, in part, she was given this job because she's a woman and she's a woman of color. Now, that's great, although it's neither here nor there. I mean, is it great to be a white man? Is it great to be a black? I don't think it really matters. But these days, it matters more than ever. And if you're a corporation or law enforcement, you want a person of color. It's the trend right now throughout law enforcement. This is very fashionable. It's very fashionable. And here's a stunning example of using women like this, using them for political purposes or using them to actually hide behind. Here's an example. Who remembers January 6th? Of course, we all do. Remember the incomprehensible security failure and officers just standing there allowing the protesters to go in? We don't know. We don't know 1% of what happened on that day. Anyway, the first hearing they had about 2 weeks after January 6th, It featured the recently fired Chief Sund and a captain in the police department, in the Capitol Police Department on the left. Who do you think they started with? The chief who ran the department, or the captain, woman of color, who had roughly 200 people who outrank her? Which one do you think they started with?
And we all believed it was important that we hear from someone who was on the front lines that day. And I'd like to recognize Captain Carnicia Mendoza of the U.S. Capitol Police. Captain Mendoza has been a member of the Capitol Police for almost 19 years. On January 6th, she rushed to the Capitol when she heard that her fellow officers needed immediate help and assumed command in the rotunda as she and her colleagues fought to push back the rioters and ultimately drive them out of the building. Captain, thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before the committee today, and thank you all for your service to our country.
All right.
My name is Captain Carnicia Mendoza.
You see what's happening here?
United
You see? This is Captain Carnicia Mendoza. I'm sure she's a fine cop. Why is she the lead testifier, the lead witness for the failures on January 6th? Because I don't know if you caught that. She actually wasn't there when the violence started. She wasn't.
It was approximately 1:30 in the afternoon. I was home eating with my 10-year-old, spending time with him before what I knew would be a long day, when a fellow captain contacted me and told me things were bad and that I needed to respond in.
Okay, that's great. All right, good for her. Why is she the lead witness? The chief is right next to her, and she speaks first, and she wasn't there for half the day. You know what's going on here. They're hiding behind her. They're using her. They put a black woman out there, and somehow it inhibits tough questioning. It's true. It's reality. That's happening. This is happening too. They're trying to make this a MAGA thing, right? Some of the worst DAs, district attorneys in the country. These guys are horrific, by the way. They are pro-criminal, anti-cop, and they're trying to portray the current trends, like cities totally out of control, that somehow Trump is responsible. No joke.
These states in the United States that have a rate of homicide that is 40% higher are MAGA states. They are Trump states. I'll say it again. The rate of homicide in Trump states as compared to Biden states, take all 50 of them, is 40% higher.
How about that, huh? Let's take a look at Tennessee. That's where Memphis is, right? It's a red state, I'll give you that, Krasner. But look at Memphis. It's right in the heart of a place called Shelby County, and that's about as blue as you can get. But this is a this is a Trump thing, right? We are having such a ludicrously stupid conversation about law enforcement and race in America to avoid having an important substantive one. And folks, I put my money where my mouth is, right? I have a book on this subject. If you don't mind, I'd like to tell you about it one more time. Justice for All, How the Left is Wrong About Law Enforcement. It is incredible what they won't say and what they will say, right? It's all here, available wherever books are sold. Thank you again for your consideration, and I'll be right back.